Hey everyone. Everyone. Hey everyone. Who says that? Crazy people say that. Hey everybody. Welcome to another chess video. We are continuing our series of going through the book How to Beat Your Dad at Chess. And today we are on our fourth checkmate. Previously we have covered, well, I say fourth checkmate in the book, but previously we've already covered four, so that's a little confusing. But the first one we covered was the Anastasia's mate, and then we covered the Greco, and then we covered yesterday, or the last video, which might have been yesterday. I think it was yesterday. We covered the whatchamacallit and the hua hua. No, the Arabian mate and the hook mate. And as we went through them, we checked out the components necessary to make each of the mates happen. And later in the video, as we go through our chess puzzles, I will talk about those components again. But today, we're on our fourth mate then, the Philidor's Legacy. I don't think that's what it's called. Is it? Are we just looking at the Smothered mate? I think we're going to be looking at Smothered mate. Oh, this is excellent! That makes me so happy! This makes me very happy because everybody loves a Smothered mate, and because although I have been aware of it, and I've gotten to smother 1.5 people, because one person resigned before they got smothered, and the other person was really nice enough to let me smother them, which isn't a thing you get to say often. But yeah. So getting to look further into the Smothered mate and then learn the components required to make it happen, which I've always been a little fuzzy on, this will be great. This will be, oh, won't this be satisfying and wonderful. I think this video will get millions of likes and I will become king of anarchychess. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, let's learn about the Smothered mate together today. Because this is a beautiful day, and everything is wonderful. Somebody crashed into my car while I was parked outside my parking lot. The world is a sham. But yeah, you guys don't care. Let's move on. A smothered mate your dad will hate. This insinuates that your father likes dead partners. Okay, well, let's not focus too much on the jokes here. This striking classic has captivated generations. Still does. The best-known version is named after François-André Philidor, a famous French player from the 18th century. A smothered mate occurs when the defender's own pieces hem in his king completely, so that a check from an enemy knight delivers a mate. Philidor's classic version, actually first published by Lucina in 1497, involves a beautiful queen sacrifice. Excuse me. Burp there, and then checkmate with the knight. It is perhaps the most famous middle game theme in chess. Unfortunately, this may mean that many opponents will know and avoid it. Even so, the theme will often influence the course of a game, even if it does not actually occur on the board. For sure, if you and your opponent are both aware of a smothered mate possibility, then it will dictate how the game flows so that that doesn't happen to you. Because my god, the last thing you would want to be is smothered mated. I'm trying to think about if I've been smothered mated, and I think I have. I think I have multiple times. At least once, definitely. Definitely at least once. I can't remember any specific times, but like I feel like it's probably happened. Alright, so let's take a look. Basic pattern for Philidor's Legacy. Smothered mate. We're not going to call it that. He doesn't deserve it. I'm just kidding. So let's look at this together. Black moves. The white queen has just moved to d5, giving check. So they could have been on any of this diagonal on g8 all the way to, what is it, a2? After one king h8, so after the king moves over there, if king f8, then the queen would go to, what is that, f7 immediately and just checkmate him. Then white continues knight to f7 check, king back to g8, and then knight to h6. So at first, the knight will start on the 4th rank of the enemy, or the 5th rank on our side. And then the queen has to be on the same diagonal that we have seen previously for the Greco. They have to have a missing f-pawn. Or if you're on the queen side, they have to be missing the c-pawn there, forcing the king into the corner. So as black is in double check, the king must return to c8. Again, if he goes to f8, then he's going to get checkmated immediately. Right. And now comes the sparkling queen sacrifice. Sparkling, double exclam. As given virtually all training manuals, queen to g8 check. And since the queen is defended by the knight, rook has to take, at which point knight to f7 checkmate. Ugh. Tears me up inside. Tears me up inside, man. Okay. In this example, the attack on white queen by black's knight is irrelevant because white's first move gives double check. So we're already, in this situation, we're already a couple steps inside the mate. Some of the components are already done. For instance, f pawn is gone. Queen is on the g8 to a2 diagonal. King is in line for a double mate. And the knight has already moved from some position, probably e5, to f7. So all we have to do at this point is knight to h6, double check, king to h8 because yada yada yada, and then queen to g8 check, defended by the knight, rook takes, and knight back to f7, smothered mate. Okay. Let's take a look at let's take a look at this one. Let's take a look. Why does that sound completely wrong now in my brain? Let's take a look. Yeah, that's how people talk. All right. Let's take a look-see. let's take a look-see at this one. Black moves. Again, we are in a position where the f-pawn is gone. Ooh, this time it's interesting. King is already in the corner this time. Very, very interesting. Queen is in the diagonal necessary. In this case, it is g1 to a7. So queen is on the right diagonal. We have a knight on the 4th rank. It seems very, very close. It looks like black is in trouble, but a stunning decoy sacrifice unpins the black knight and turns the tables. It looks like black is in trouble. Indeed, it looks like black is in trouble. Oh, yes. Ah, but in this situation, we have the bishop also on this diagonal. So what we're just going to go straight, what we're going to do is go straight into the last part of the smothered mate, sacrificing the queen, g1 check. It is defended by the bishop, and so the rook has to take, and then we can smother it. Yum, 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 yum. Yum, 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 yum. Okay, let's take a look at another one. White to move in this scenario. F-pawn is gone from f7. Diagonal is open. Queen is on that diagonal. Very, very good. Knight is about to double check the king. So it's very similar to that first puzzle we looked at. Let's try to calculate ourselves. Knight to h6, double check. King has only one place to go, h9, at which point queen comes in to g8 to check. Rook has to take, defended by the knight, yada yada. And then when rook takes, back to f7, checkmate. If black can keep the f7 covered, a draw, perpetual success is likely. If black can keep the f7 square covered, but he can't. Knight h7, knight h6 check, king h8, knight f7, etc. Here, queen g8 is a blunder due to knight takes g8 and knight f7 and rook takes f7. Wait, what? Was I wrong? Am I wrong in this? So knight to h6, double check, king to h8, That's the perpetual. Here, instead of going to knight f7, if queen goes to g8, it is a blunder. Due to knight takes... Oh, it is a blunder. I'm so stupid. I fell right into that trap. Okay. Only the black bishop on g6 is preventing... Wait. So is there... Was this more like a... kind of like a cone? It's a Zen cone. There's actually no way for this to work. I guess you would have to somehow distract the knight while keeping this knight safe, so that the next move you could somehow do something. Is there a way to do that? No, I don't think so. That's a shame. Good to know. We should have really made sure who was controlling that g8 square. Not just the rook. There were two defenders. If there are two defenders for that g8 square, it doesn't work. Alright. Only the black bishop on g6 is preventing immediate smothered mate. White wins with a decoy sacrifice. Queen takes h7. Queen takes h7. Bishop takes h7. Right, because it's defended by the knight, and then knight can go to f7 for the checkmate. Wowzer. Alright. Okay. So, today we learned about the smothered mate, and we learned a couple of things. We learned to be careful of a diagonal piece covering that last f7 square, obviously. And also we have to be mindful that there's no more than one defender on the last rank. If there are more than one, then the queen sacrifices for naught, obviously. So good. Good that we learned those things. Actually, that's not true. It's not necessarily that there has to be one defender on g8. It doesn't matter how many actually defenders are on g8. It's actually the f7 issue. It was because the rook was on f8, and because f7 in the end was not safe, that the smothered mate could not happen. If in that situation, instead of the knight taking, the rook had taken that queen, smothered mate would still have been possible. So it's all about that f7 square in the end. There has to be nobody touching that f7 square. So not only for the smothered mate to happen does the f7 square, the f-pawn have to be gone from the pawn shield, but at the end that square has to be open for the smothered mate to be possible. So we learned something. Do I like learning? I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. How do I get to chess tempo? Here we go. Sweet, sweet screen transitions. Okay, so now that we know what kind of components are necessary to make that mate happen, let's go to our custom puzzle set. We're going to manage sets, open up How to Beat Your Papa, and we have these four in here, and we're going to excitement, add in the smothered mate today. Alright, smother, and we'll search, raising our puzzles to 1555. Save set. Yes, I had to lean in to look at the number because my eyes are bad because I'm an old man. And yeah, let's get started. Let's see what we're looking at, man. Let's see what we're looking at. This seems Anastasia-esque. We got a knight. He's controlling flight squares. This could be smothery as well. I'm not sure yet. Let's take a careful look here. What other possibilities are here? What other possibilities are here? I don't know. So for Anastasia, we generally need another major piece to be on the same file so that so that black so that the king cannot. I had too many thoughts at the same time, and as I was talking, I just fucked myself over. Let me try that again. So usually with an Anastasia's mate, one of the key components that we talked about is not only having one major piece to be able to open up the file or a rank, but having another major piece ready to go into that file or rank to give checkmate at the end, while the knight controls any of the flight squares. In this scenario, however, I don't know why I say scenario. It's crazy. I don't know when I started. Everybody says scenario. I don't know why I have to be special. I'm a crazy guy. But yeah, in this scenario, I don't have another major piece readily available to go on to that rank, the first rank here. So that makes me think maybe it's not Anastasia, maybe it's Smothered. But for it to be Smothered, there are other components that are necessary, right? We need a diagonal piece able to give a double check with the knight when it discovers. However, the knight's position in this situation doesn't necessarily hit the king from any angle very easily either. Since we can't really figure out all of the opponents, I mean, another idea I have is technically maybe it's the Greco of some sort. But let's try to figure out the first move, and then maybe the puzzle will clear itself out, and it'll whisper us the answer, or something like that. So first candidate move I see is bishop takes on c3. This bishop kind of a bother to my queen here right now. So if we can get rid of it, I'd be pretty happy about that. On bishop takes c3, it is putting pressure on the queen. The knight can't take because of the pin. The queen can take, but the queen also has a choice not to take as well. So let's take a look at some of those lines. Bishop takes on c3, queen takes on c3. What does that leave us? What does that open up for us? The queen now is in a very, very nice file. I feel like if anything we've helped them. We can do a queen trade and the knight can take on c3. But then that only leaves us one attacker on the king side, and as pro as I want to be, I don't think I can just mate with one minor piece. So that trade doesn't sound... Well, that trade sounds dubious, if anything. Oh, here's an interesting one. What about knight to a3, putting pressure on the b1 square while also getting rid of this threat here, or running away from this threat here, and this threat, many threats. This is a little slow, but I also don't see... okay, I see. I was going to say, I also don't see any way white can stop it. They can. They just have to remove the real threat, which is the queen on a1. So that doesn't seem quite good. Another interesting line would be knight takes queen on d2, bishop takes on a1, and then what? Is there something? No, that doesn't look that good either. Oh, I'm a silly Billy. This is actually quite easy. It's an incredible move. I didn't see it. It's not that incredible, but I didn't see it, so that makes it incredible. I just figured out the line, I think quite by accident, when I was looking at what we're trying to do. I was thinking of trying to save the queen and somehow doing some kind of mate based on the components, but I think while looking at it, something came up. This control of the b2 square by the knight came to mind, and really, since we have 3 pieces controlling that square with only one defender, then the idea would be queen b2, check. Since it's defended, you have to remove it because the king doesn't have any flight squares. You have to remove it with the bishop, but then there's bishop takes b2, checkmate. No flight squares. And this is like some kind of Anastasia-esque thing via diagonals, which is very interesting. Smother? Is it really? I guess. Definitely attraction. Smother, though? Alright. Their idea of smothered is a little bit more open to interpretation than being completely smothered by only your pieces. So, in chess tempo, smothered mate is defined by the king having 0 flight squares. Doesn't matter if it's because of opponent's pieces or your own pieces. Which, in my mind, is getting nearly into what was that other mating term? That wasn't smothering completely. But, it was another devious S term that we heard before. Damn, what was that term? Oh, god damn it. I really want to know now. It wasn't smothered, it was. We have to find out. Chess, mating patterns. Okay, it was the suffocation. And with suffocation, it's just that the square is controlled by one of your pieces. But what we just saw, is that suffocation or is that smothered? I don't know. That's tricky. I feel like that's kind of an edge case that could be either or. Anyway, enough lollygagging. Let's take a look at this puzzle here. Ooh. So we have a knight. We have a king. We have a knight and we have a king. Yeah, okay. We have, let's see what kind of components we meet. There's a major piece on one of the flanks. The knight can give a check at some point. I'm thinking maybe this could be some kind of hook or some kind of Arabian kind of thing. Potentially it could be smothered as well, but that's generally done when the king is in the corner. There's some kind of diagonal to use and whatnot. This doesn't seem like a case of any of those things, actually. But yeah, let's take a look and see what we have here. There's a lot of good defense on the second rank. There's a bishop also defending that f7 pawn. This seems quite good for black. Of course, the most immediate threat I see is, the most threatening move that I can make immediately is queen takes f6, but then there's just pawn takes f6. Oh, but then there's knight to f6. Why do I keep saying f6? h6. Queen to h6. Queen takes on h6. Pawn takes on h6. I know my notation. And then there is knight to actual f6, not imaginary La La Land f6, which is actually h6. And then the only flight squares that the king actually has is a g7. This rank is controlled by the rook, and then, of course, this pawn took the h6. So, after king to g7, knight doesn't have to worry because he's defended. Then we have rook to g7, and it is a hook. So, queen sacrifice hook. La-di-da-di-da. Papa. I recognized what we were supposed to do. Excellent. Very, very good. This is a smothered mate situation. How do I know this? We have the knight ready to go on to g3 or to f2. I think that is very important to understand. I'm still uncertain exactly where the knight has to be, but this feels like it's in the right territory. And then we have the missing f pawn. We have the open diagonal. There's a lot of good things going on here. So let's take a look. What's possible? If we do queen to g1 right now, then king can take. So there's nothing there. So let's take a look at knight to f2 check. Rook can take. And then there's queen to e1, rook back to f1, and then queen takes on f1. No way that the queen can get in on this party. Knight to f2. If king moves, then we go into smothered mate with a double check on knight to h3. King has to move back. Queen to g1, rook takes, and then of course, blah, 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 blah. So this is a great position to be in. Let's send that rook or the knight in. All right, and we get to smother. Delicious. Excellent. Huzzah. Always feels good to smother, mate. Yum, yum, yum. All right, let's take a look at the next one here. This is a very interesting position. So I'm going to ignore the fact that the rook can just take on f1 for now and look at the components. We have a possible Anastasia. If we had a diagonal piece, specifically a queen, able to take this, and a rook that's another major piece that's able to get onto the H file, this would be an Anastasia situation. Or, that being said, this almost looks smothery, but because there's an f pawn and nothing controlling this diagonal, that it's not. This is just a back rank mate. The rook's just gonna take the rook. Oh, I see what the issue is here. Rook takes rook, and then there's knight to g1. I was like, this is just clearly a back rank mate. I don't know what they're trying to show us, but yeah. So rook takes rook, and then there's one more block with knight to g1. But this knight is already controlling g1, so the rook can just take even further, and that we would call, by chess tempo definitions, a smothered mate. In other parts of the world, maybe we'd say this is a suffocation. That was bogus fucking. That was a bogus. That was bogus. That was just bogus in general. Oh, goody. Another actual smothered mate here. We're going to sacrifice the queen, take on h2. Bishop is the only way to take. King can't take because it's defense by the knight. When that happens, yeah, we looked at this puzzle. We looked at it in the thing. Here we go. That was the last puzzle in How to Beat Your Papa. Okay. This one looks hookish. I'm not exactly sure yet, though. Let's take a look. So we have a knight that's able to give a check. This is, and the knight is defended, and the g8 square is going to be controlled. This all makes me think that we're in very, very hook mate territory. I don't know why I'm having these lapses in thought. I think I'm having a stroke. I'm not actually having a stroke. Funny story about me having a stroke, though. Maybe sometime when I have viewers and people are curious about my life, I'll tell the story. But for now, who the fuck cares? Let's go back to the puzzle. So, first move, I think, is knight to f6, the real f6. And that comes with king to either h8 or g7. If king to h8, I think that's really bad, because queen just takes on h6, and there are no good flight squares. Everything is controlled by us, so that would be a checkmate instantly. So king to g7 is the correct maneuver here. But then I'm curious as to what I'm supposed to do in retaliation, or white is supposed to do in retaliation. Sacrifice a queen on h6, queen takes h6, king takes h6. Are there any available major pieces that can get onto the same file? Ooh la la, there is. That's very exciting. So then the rook moves in. King can't go anywhere on the H file. This knight prevents him from going onto G5. So that means the only place he can go back to is to G7, at which point we would have rook to H7 checkmate with another hook. So let's go over the line again, make sure there aren't any blockers or any other lines that we didn't see the first time. Knight to F6. H8 is met with an immediate checkmate. So knight to F6. G7 is the only possible square. Queen sack. If king doesn't take, where can he go? He can't go anywhere. He has to take. He's forced to take. Any blockers? No, it doesn't look like it. So king has to take. That opens up this rank, and the rook is able to move into H4 check. As we talked about, this square, this square, this square, this square, all covered. King has to go to G7, and then rook to H7, and we have our hook. Excellent. That's very fucking cool. Yeehaw. Huzzah. Let's take a look at the next one. This almost looks like a smothered mate. Could this be a Greco, though? Yes, possibly yes as well. In fear of a smothered mate, he's going to get checkmated by a Greco. That's very cool. So the reason I think it's going to be a Greco is because we have a major piece readily available on this H file. The knight, I don't think, is in the correct position to be doing a smothered mate. As we talked about before, ideally I would want him controlling these two squares. So diagonal of the G pawn, basically. But he's not, or she's not. They're not. This fake piece is not. So I think the only thing that they can do if I do knight to G3 check, because this G1 square is controlled thanks to the Greco, they can only take. And then we'll have the open file. We'll have one blocker. Queen to H5, but then rook takes H5. No other blockers exist. G1 is still controlled. We win the game. Huzzah! Yay! Okay, that's pretty cool. F-pawn has moved. This is terrible idea. We have a bishop controlling that. This could be very Greco-esque. There's a knight on this file, though, that's a little rude. Really bums our fucking game. And then, of course, the knight is not controlling the F square or that G6 square, the F7 square or the G6 square. Not diagonal to the G pawn. In this case, it is actually the G pawn. So this, I feel like, is going to be... Ooh, this could be Anastasia as well. Oh my god, it could be a lot of things. But for the Anastasia, as we've known before, we have to have some way to sacrifice a piece to remove the... Or we have to sacrifice a piece to remove that H, to clear up that H file. Clearly, because of these two pieces and no direct attack on it, I don't think it's going to be Anastasia. But this is very interesting. There's a lot of things like that could be a possibility here. This is very hilarious. Okay, first move that I see is sacrificing the bishop. Bishop attacks. If king takes, are there some lines that we can start on that will be horrifying? We're moving the king into the open, so that's dangerous. I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I want to do that. Bishop takes, king takes G7. We don't have queen to G3 because of knight takes G3, but we do have queen to C3. Block, or king can move. Let's look at the block first. If we get a blocker, bishop to E5, then there's queen takes E5. King cannot move to the G8 or the G6 squares because of the knight, so they would have to go to h6. And then I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Ho ho. I wish there was rook to e6, but there's bishop takes e6. I don't think this is a line. I don't like the idea of opening up squares for the king, right? We control this right now, and I think having control sometimes is better than just sacking pieces arbitrarily. I would say, yes, what I just said all the time is better. Controlling a space is better than just arbitrarily sacking pieces. Well, let's take a look at a similar line to what we did in the last puzzle. We do knight to g6 check because of the diagonal controlled by the bishop. They would have to sack this. And that's really, really cool. That's really, really cool, but the knight is covering this h file, and the rook can't go to h4 because of queen to h4. So even if we opened up a file and we have two pieces ready to party, I'm not exactly sure if it's possible. So like knight to g6 check, pawn takes g6, queen to h3 isn't immediately in danger thanks to this pawn, but then what happens? This knight is now defended on g6. So I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Holy balls. No way. Oh my god, this is so pretty. So you know how we were saying it's better to control the square than sacrifice pieces randomly? Well, this is the reason why. Because knight g6, pawn takes g6, queen shouldn't be able to get to h6 for a checkmate. But in this case it can, because this pawn is a pinned pawn by this bishop that we were going to just willy-nilly sacrifice. Oh, the shame, Doc. The shame. Okay, so in this situation, I think let's just look through it one more time. Knight g6 check, pawn g6 check because the king can't move away. Then we have queen to h6 checkmate because the pawn cannot take. There are no blockers that can go to h7, and the king can't go to g8, blah, 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 because of the things we talked about. Wow, that is neat. Very cool. I would not see that in a real game. Okay, well that was exciting. Let's take a look at this one. Ooh, this is interesting. This is very, very interesting. There are a lot of pieces on my side that can do some dangerous work here. Immediately I see the defended knight and the king very close and the rook on an adjacent file. Not adjacent file, an adjacent rank, which makes me think Arabian or hook. So how do we get rid of this defender? Well, that's easy. Sacrifice a queen. Who doesn't love sacking queens? So we sack the queen on h3. Pawn takes. There are no other options. The king is forcefully stuck because of this knight. Pawn takes. When that happens, this rank is opened up. Rook to g2 check. That's not g2, that's h2. King cannot go to g1 because of the knight again, and that's checkmate. Before I move my piece though, let's take a look to make sure that there are no blockers and that this is the only line. Yes, king can move, has to take. Are there any blockers? No controllers on h2. Okay. Checkmate. Excellent, excellent. All right, what are we looking at here? We have some flight squares controlled by the knight from 3 ranks down. This looks very Anastasia-ish. It's an Anastasia back rank. Rook to h1. Only blocker possible is knight. Is there flight squares for the king? No, there aren't. The knight block is the only way to go. So if that's the case, then rook takes, and these 2 flight squares are still controlled, and that's it. Huzzah. All right. Working with a much emptier board here, but I think this is also going to be a hook of some kind. But let's take a look. Obviously, the first thing I see is getting the knight closer to this sector. Having the knight somewhere in this sector seems to be a major piece of the puzzle, often in these for any of these mates that we're looking at. It might be really cool to kind of diagram out all of the places that the knight has been that are useful, but I'm too lazy. So let's just keep on going. Knight to f3 check. This file and this rank is controlled, and the knight would also control some similar squares here, including the h2 square. So that only leaves at that point that only leaves the h1 square for the king. So knight f3, king to h1. We're gonna have to do some shenanigans, I think, for this one. Rook to g1. Is checkmate? Okay, maybe I didn't have to look that hard. Man, I forgot how little you need for the Arabian to work. Good God. So yeah, let's just make sure that this is right, but I think it's mate in 2. Knight to f2, knight to f3. I know my numbers, damn it. King to h1, because that's the only flight square he has. There aren't any blockers or controllers of f3. And then rook to g1. This space is controlled by the knight. All of this file is controlled by the rook. All of this rank is controlled by the rook. That looks like a checkmate to me. All right. Amazed. Very, very amazed. All right. We're widened the situation, and we've been we've been blocked out by the knight on g8. We have some knights kind of close to the king. This rook is adjacent to the king, which makes me think Arabian. But I also see these flight squares being controlled by this knight, which makes me think Anastasia. And I think it is Anastasia, because in the scenario, we have queen to g8. All of the e file is controlled by this knight. So there's no flight squares there. f7 is controlled by the knight, as we've talked about in this Anastasia-esque scenario. So then king has to take the queen, and then, as we've talked about before, we have a major piece readily available to get onto that rank. And I think that's it. Queen takes, no flight squares, king must take. Rook to e8. Any blockers? No. Any controllers of e8? No. And there we have it. Okay, simple as that. You know, I have to say, I've been really enjoying doing How to Beat Your Dad to kind of add in mates step by step. Not only is it making me much better at recognizing and seeing the mates and how they work, specifically the coordination of the pieces, but I also think it's developing my ability to read the lines and recognize the patterns a little bit easier thanks to the components. So that's cool. I hope you guys are enjoying the series, because I'm really, really enjoying the series now as well. Huzzah. You know what? I think I'm enjoying this series so much, I might actually share this one on chess, R-chess, or Anarchy. I don't know which one will be more hilarious. I think Anarchy will be more hilarious, although they're in like a really weird state right now. Yesterday was still Ruy Lopez, but today I think they started sharing like, oh man, what did they start sharing today? There was that really cool animation that somebody did for Gotham Chess. That was spectacular. But I forgot what meme they were focused on today. It was something really stupid. I don't remember. Anyway, yeah, I'll share it. I'm proud of this series. I'm really happy about this series and the way it's going. So yeah, whoever checked it out from Anarchy, what a sucker. What a sucker for watching this. But for everybody else, thanks for watching. And yeah, if you like this series, leave me a comment. And probably tomorrow, I think I'm going to do something a little bit different. I think we've been doing a lot of this, you know, calculating and recognizing mating patterns. Let's see how much we've improved by going on to Lee Chess's Puzzle Racer and see where we stand. See how I do. Yeah, so I guess that's my promise for tomorrow. I don't know. Maybe it won't be tomorrow. Who the fuck knows? But yeah. See you guys later.